"I'm Kelly," said the imposter. "You're beautiful," said Kelly. Doppler House is a story I've worked on for the past 2 years that has gone through a lot of change. One thing that holds true in the story is that it's a personal journey of growth and existence. Page 47, that life of never being blind to the circumstance, but blind to the optimism commanding your mind, is hell. It's a story about many things, but at its core, it's a doppelganger love story. I remember a loose thread of stories, whether it be Twilight Zone with a jealous robot, or The Thing with, a monster with suspiciously good timing, portraying doppelgangers or others or skinwalkers as these horrible monstrosities. And as I've written Doppler House, the idea of doppelgangers has grown popularity. Take, for instance, Mandela Catalog, or just the creepypasta-esque narrative that skinwalkers have kind of adopted. Concept of seeing a person and knowing that they're not a person is a scary thought in general. So Doppler House, in turn, reverses the narrative of this horrid creature and asks the question, what if they were better than the original? Could you handle knowing that this person, even if they were better, wasn't the real person? Morally, if you were questioned, would you defend this being, this entity, as being the original one? Page 35. Connor knew what this was, the same fear from earlier rushing to the forefront of his mind, remembering the creature on the side of his truck. He had to take a moment to recover. That was the same being that now stood in front of him with a fresh tray of muffins, ready to eat. What came from these questions were a small blanket of ideas and themes like obsession versus love, weakness in strength, and trauma response variation. All practically ripped from my own life. I mean, I am a writer after all. But there came a point when this idea wasn't enough to tell the story I wanted to. Enter one Detective Benny Torres, an old friend of Connor and Kelly, and the only real person hunting and trying to eliminate Dopplers. That's what I call doppelgangers in this story. Dopplers, Doppler House, you get it. Page 19, her gaze was like that of a scalpel, constantly peeling back whatever layers she was faced with. 2 unwavering emerald plates of dissection. She looked to the floor. Fresh scuff marks led to the back doors behind the counter. Benny motioned to the doors to one of the workers. A light nod was all they could muster before 2 streams of tears lined down their strained face. Benny quickly became the hero and villain of the story. Therefore, talking about her is terrifying because I want to avoid spoilers. And I know the quotes I've used thus far might seem revealing, might seem like you know what's going on. You don't. You know the setup. The deepest of the quotes I used is the end of chapter 3 of the 13-chapter book. So go ahead, sit there, think you know what's going on, because you really don't. Doppler House, as described by one of my beta readers, is a graphic thriller with brushes of painful romance. Quite bad at pitching the idea myself, so hopefully I've painted a pretty good picture. As 3/26/24, final preparations are being made as far as publishing, cover art, inside jacket, that kind of stuff. And as I gather those elements, I will be announcing them on my various platforms. You can follow me down below. Click the link tree, and that is exactly where you need to be to find all of my different socials and stay up to date with everything that I have going on. April is going to be a huge push for a fan base, for a following, for more people to get behind the story, and for when it eventually comes out, you guys will have someone to talk to about it. But I want to leave you with a bit more, so here is my favorite passage from chapter 1. Kelly's mouth dropped and stretched beyond any normal length, wrapping around the original's head. The teeth Kelly had just grown continued to grow and pierce the skull of the original. Kelly's eyes flashed through every color as her hair shortened and lengthened in groups around her head, sporadically changing color and texture. The bite of Kelly sent blood straight up and all around the pair. The snow was carved out by the steaming red liquid. The original skull was now clean flat across, right above the lip. As Kelly swallowed the large chunk, her body expanded around the mass, moving down into her stomach. She dropped the original to the ground with a heavy thud. Fingers pierced through her neck and gripped around the esophagus like a handle. She stared at the window to Laura's room as she made her way to the house, dragging the body behind her. It smoothed out the tracks left behind, leaving a heavy curve in the ice. Kelly opened the door to her home and shortened her arm to a normal length. The storm was long from over as it kicked up once again. The blood and tracks Kelly had made were covered as if nothing had ever happened. Goodbye. Now, if you're new here, or even if you aren't, you're probably wondering what the hell that was. That was the intro video or small section to my story, The Doppler House. I know I've mentioned a few times that I am an actual author besides hosting this podcast. Each blank page if you're new here. The people who are usually here also don't know what the hell's going on. I just figured I'd put it on here to let you guys see, and to save a little bit of time in my day. But welcome to the Blank Page, episode 21. I don't have a lot to talk about, but I have a lot to talk about a very specific thing. As always, on this podcast, we talk about stories, whether it be movies, books, short stories, plays, whatever, and kind of dive into it. And so, dive into it, we're about to. I have no mouth, and I must scream. I had seen plenty of references to it, whether it be through just textual references like quotes, or I'm pretty sure there was a game of it that was kind of popular a little bit, but it was actually extremely popular short story released in 1966 alongside, in the nature of 1984 by George Orwell. Now, it is, I want to say it's like a genre, but it's a type of story. It's just completely post-apocalyptic, disastrous hellscape horror. Very just a story about shitty things that happen to shitty people and shitty circumstances with shitty time. It's just bad. It's all bad, but written beautifully. If I do say so myself, I've been listening to the audiobook on repeat, and it's one of those reads that is reminding me that there is no rules when it comes to art, when it comes to writing. There's no rules. There are guidelines, and there are specific things that you can do to make a story better, to make your writing better, but they're not set in stone. There is no, you need to do this. You have to do this. You must do this thing for it to be this much better at this certain time. Yada, yada. Bullshit. This story throws everything out the window. Let me just read you a small sentence or an example of what I mean by this. So, in the story, the character's freaking out, whatever. I'll set it up in a second. If you guys aren't familiar with I have no mouth and I must scream. But here is the sentence. I knew it wasn't the relief a soldier feels when a bullet hits the man next to him. I knew they hated me. What the fuck? What the fuck? It is an ugly reality. It is an ugly passage. It's an ugly thought, but understandable. It's real. It's relevant. It is actual. Because, yeah, you would feel relief by not getting hit by the bullet, even though it hits someone right next to you, a brother in arms, that whole shtick. And it is littered, the story, I mean, with those kinds of pieces of writing. Let me look up one and kind of break my whole workflow. Kind of just losing my mind a little bit. Okay, here's the first line, like line 1, page 1, the first taste of the story. If you guys are considering actually reading it, I would recommend it. I listened to the audiobook, which will be linked down below in the YouTube video. That guy does a killer job. I'm looking for the author because I'm horrible at this. Harlan Ellison. Stories by Harlan Ellison. So it was a short story. Limp. The body of Gorster hung from the pink palette, unsupported, hanging high above us in the computer chamber, and it did not shiver in the chill, oily breeze that blew eternally through the main cavern. The body hung head down, attached to the underside of the pallet by the sole of its right foot. It hadn't been drained of blood through a precise incision. Oh my God. So just in that first sentence, you have a masterclass of setting a scene without setting a scene. An oily breeze that blew eternally down a cold corridor puts a lot of images in your head. It puts a lot of feeling in your head. You can feel the oil on your skin. The, it's not literally oil, but the damp wind coming from a cold corridor and how that can play a part. There's no blood dripping from the body. It's been there a while. It's hanging from its foot. The idea to put a descriptive word as the first word of your entire sentence, book, story, what have you, perfect. Because it's like, limp. Oh, what the fuck are we talking about? What do we do? What? And then goes in to describe what they're actually seeing. And they're actually seeing, because this is a first-person story. It's the best that I've actually heard. I'm much more into third-person omniscient or limited, but third person nonetheless. Never really a first person. I never really got the point. I wanted to know what was going on with the other characters. I wanted to know what was going on behind the scenes, away from the main character. And what the story did for me, as someone who appreciates story literature, described, gave examples, showed me, made me understand the power of a first-person narrative. Because it's not just the idea that you can't tell what's going on with the other characters. It's the purest dive into a character that you can have, because the only characterization of the other characters that you get are the actions that they do that the main character perceives, along with the internal dialogue of the main character onto the side characters, which might sound simplistic, which might sound obvious, but was not to me. And through reading this or listening to it on an audiobook, became very apparent. It's about 40 minutes to listen. Please go down in the description and listen to it. It is an amazing piece of work and has taught me a lot. I have more than a few notes that I want to talk about today. I'm very excited. So, the setup. I had no mouth, I must scream. The eternal dystopian doomsday landscape, whatever. So, to set up what the story is, just so when I'm talking about it, you guys kind of understand what I'm talking about. It's about this AI kind of mastermind. It's not a person, it's an AI that gains sentience and it was written in the midst of the Cold War, 1966, or past it. So that fear of like just nukes dropping, completely relevant. And in the canon of the story, what happened was every world leader, country, organization, whatever, every country kind of had its own AI system to run these computerized wars, because they were very new to all of civilization in general. Things like radio, things like instant communications between two different parts of the world, huge, and scary as hell, because they didn't know what was going to come of it. So in that line of thinking, this is about a evil AI that has killed every human on Earth except for 5, has gained complete control, complete mastery over the Earth, and is pissed off about it because he hates humans. He hates that they've damned him to this eternal hell. And just saying that, I'm getting it wrong, because in the book he specifically talks about how distinct his hate for humanity is. That they brought him into the world to fight a war that they couldn't handle, that gave him ultimate knowledge, but left him unable to wonder and to wander around the world. He is everywhere. He is everything. So he kept 5 people, 2 of which are kind of irrelevant, and then 3 are kind of the main going-ons, one of them being the main character. And as you go through the story, you kind of realize that they're just there to be tortured. And you realize this because he tells you. He describes at length the kinds of things that this AI does to them, the torturous things that it does just to, well, they don't know specifically if it's to get entertainment, to remind himself of the hate he feels towards humanity, to entertain himself, that kind of thing. For example, one character in the story, Benny, used to be this brilliant theorist, scientific mind, all that kind of stuff, and gay, apparently. In turn of that, the AI mastermind has made him into this ape-like monstrosity because it has almost godlike powers. It can do whatever. It has kept them alive for 109 years, perfectly at the same age they were at the start of it, just to torture them. And so what the AI does to Benny is gives him injections, gives him specific torment to reconstruct his handsome face. He was specifically very handsome, into a bulbous monkey-like appearance, kind of dethroning humanity as a sentient species, the ultimate life form, the dominant life form on Earth, that kind of thing. It's very one extreme to the X, to the next. Kind of just taking the king's knees, you know what I mean? And he does this with each of the characters besides the main character, which is a very interesting point I want to get to in a second. For every other person, the three that are there, one was very like extroverted, very happy all the time, was a go-getter, entrepreneur, very like, we're going to get this done, we're going to do this, blah, blah, optimist, and is now extremely passive. Extremely, yeah, man, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. I don't care. Doesn't have an opinion about anything, has no will to go forward. And that character, I believe, represents the will of mankind, because each character represents some asset of mankind. As for the other one, I'm very forgettable. It doesn't really do much. There is one, Ellen, that apparently was a very caring woman, the only woman of the group, very like celibate and believed in like true love and stuff like that, and now just sleeps with all the guys all the time, especially the monkey one, who has, quoted in the book, an organ fit for a horse. So do that as you will. Like I said, this book is filled with those ugly relatability lines. And it seems that every character has this kind of specific, specialized, sadistic kind of torture besides the main character. But that's the torture itself. This is where it starts getting really cool. He, I believe, is an unreliable narrator, but you can kind of tell as he's talking, he's stricken with madness, or he's being driven crazy, as someone who isn't directly being tortured, directly being assaulted, or manipulated, or anything, is around these four other people who are constantly being tortured and constantly being altered, whether it be psychologically or physically. And thus, he thinks that they hate him for it. And they do. They make fun of him for it. And that is his torture, a torture of exclusion, a torture of isolation, even though it's better. And so he's what the AI mastermind AM is doing to the main character is kind of like a second level torture, is like a non-direct, intentional act. And it is so cool. It's because it required that thought. It required that deep level of understanding the situation that might seem paper thin, but is actually very difficult to do, because you're spawning a world in your mind. You're spawning these characters in your mind. There is no set guidelines. The guidelines we have now of the story are set because she wrote it. I believe it's a woman. And so having this playground of anything could happen, and sticking to certain rules, and then thinking past those rules into another level, is very impressive to see, and something that I'm taking away from the story. But yeah, so each of the characters are tortured by the AI mastermind, or allied master computer, AM, that just drops the hardest line I've ever read. I keep repeating the specific line, but I want to make sure I get it right. All right, he says, "I awoke and realized who I am, not just Allied Master Computer, but am, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. Holy shit. The inception of consciousness, the implicity of it, the reflection of God making man, man making machine. Of course, obviously, we've seen it in Terminator, we've seen it in Matrix. It is not a new idea, but this kind of idea, this kind of Frankenstein-esque awakening onto the earth brought upon humanity, children of the earth, it is just... it's a spawn of consciousness that you would see in a child, a baby of any sort of species, biological. But now it's like you're giving a brand new consciousness every piece of human literature, thought, experience. You're giving a full mind, a completed mind, an observant, a literally inclined or literaturally inclined, an intelligence-based consciousness that has just began. The ability to express its thought, the ability to think and understand. There is no development cycle. There is no growing. There is no need to wait until its brain is fully formed. It is am, I think therefore I am. It is beautiful, beautiful. Sorry. And so, just so I don't keep talking in circles, I wanted to go over some specific notes because as I was listening, I was taking notes. And see notes 10, 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so there are a lot of things I learned from I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream. One of them being the commitment to describing something. It's a book. It's all descriptions. It's all describing things because you can't see any pictures, of course, unless it's a picture book. But the idea is to give you words that feed into your mind that kind of get mixed, washed with experience, with descriptions from the pages itself, from the symbols itself, from the words itself, into an idea within your own mind that does not exist anywhere else other than your mind through the words on the page. It's not difficult to do. I can say, think of a cold room. You probably imagine a room. If you're watching, it's probably this one and it's cold. Or it's the one you're in. Or it's one that you remember being cold, like a freezer. It's not hard. It's not hard for us because like 90% of our brain, not 90, but a lot of our brain is put towards language, the understanding of symbols, the memorization of symbols, the ability to connect an object with an idea and thus forth, and be able to plan and recall, to think of things that don't exist, like a dragon bursting through this wall behind me is an idea that doesn't exist. The thing that doesn't exist, and that's an idea. So the writer makes a distinct commitment on describing something coming down a hallway. And they don't even go into what it looks like. Just the feeling of it coming down this hallway is what you get to describe what made its fucking way through the hallway. As I'm listening to it, it just kept going. And so I counted how many sentences there were. 6 sentences total used to describe what was coming down. The time code on that is 1344. I will be linking the time code down there in the description if you're watching on YouTube, just so you can listen to it and then come right back if you would like to. But just listening to this immense, because it was never redundant. It was never just something big came down the hallway. It was something big came down the hallway that made me feel small, that shook the room around me, that was a pure pressure, a mass of bulk. And it's just all these great words to get across the feeling of the main character, not what was causing the feeling, which was another huge win for the first person category of just how first person narrative can actually work and be enticing. Because I read first person narratives before and they were kind of bad, and I'm not going to say which books because just certain books just aren't for me, but I was never fond of them until now, and I understand why, that they're so powerful, or can be. Let's move on to the next No, okay. I was already talking about this. Uh, First person narrative being powerful. I knew it wasn't the relief a soldier feels when a bullet hits the man next to him. I know they hated me. Oh, so good. Okay, there's a sense of unknowing among the people who know the most. There's 5 people in the entire world being just ripped apart, tortured by this M AI, like master computer. And so they're all we have to know what the fuck is going on. And they don't know anything. They know the basics. They know what we know at that point, that it is a AI that is torturing them for some reason, and the world is completely destroyed. Now, things happen in the story. Duh. What the fuck am I talking about? Things happen in the story. Nice take, Victor. Jesus Christ. There's a part of the story where this giant tornado comes in and is just throwing them around for weeks, actual weeks. The phrase an indeterminate amount of time had passed is used like 90 times in the story. I'm sure it's like 10% of the entirety of the story. So things of that nature, just a random tornado shows up. They're told to go get cans of soup. Will happen, and they don't know what the hell's going on. Everyone's insane, crazy, crying and laughing in a corner, and there's this sense of just ununified wholeness where it's just the 5 of them. That's it, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do. They don't know how they can even do anything. It is a feeling of hopelessness that is ingrained in the entirety of the story. It is a story of hopelessness. It is a story of loss of control. You can see that through the relationship between the AI and the humans, but it's so much deeper than that, because as the story progresses and the guy just keeps talking, he ponders, he wonders, he asks questions to the reader, and it's like, I'm here for the answers, my man. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, because it is very. It's written like dialogue. It's not that it's written like dialogue. 90% of the words you hear are just. You could imagine someone talking. You can imagine someone talking to themselves. But when it comes to the descriptions, like the mass moving down the hallway, the feelings he holds towards Benny and the others, then the writing comes in, then the articulate literature of just esteemed principle and advanced language comes into play, because the writer is trying to get across an idea, a feeling, a theme through someone talking. So when it comes to the point of, if you were to feel this feeling, you wouldn't be able to describe it. So I'm here to do it for you. And it weaves in between the actual lines that the guy is saying, or saying to himself, to telling to us as the reader. And it's just kind of like, hey, I saw this thing on a table. But when it starts to talk about how it makes the character feel, it still sounds like the character talking, but it uses these words that you would never hear anyone use. It uses these descriptions that you would never hear anyone use, because this is a piece of art. This is a masterclass piece of writing. People don't just have those in your head 24/7 when you're just grabbing an apple off the counter. Now, I continue. I lied. Those are all my notes that I have. So, this is a spoiler warning for the end of the book. The feeling of helplessness is ingrained in the story, from the title to the last description of what the character is going through. This is a spoiler. The main character helps the other 5 characters die to escape Am, and he kills, I believe, 2 of them, along with the help of the woman Elaine, who kills one, and then he kills the other, and then he kills Elaine before Am can do anything. And so he wins, technically, because he doesn't die. He can't kill himself, and the AI computer doesn't allow them to kill themselves, because he's kind of ingrained within them. But he's not God. He can't keep them alive forever, which is a talking point of the actual story. So what the computer does is take away his body, turns him into a mass that he says in the book, leaves a trail of slime behind him as if he were to move. He has no mouth, he has no eyes, he has no ears. He is just a consciousness that is kept alive. And it is like the ultimate form of helplessness. It is the ultimate hell that the computer can cast upon him, because of how much he hates this main character. So even though he won, he lost. And then the main character finds himself in a position where he has no mouth. And he must scream, which he says at the end of the book. And the idea of prompting you with an idea that will lead you to the end of the story and is the theme of the story and relates to the character's inevitable fates in the story is just like a triple whammy. Just great. Just, I learned so much. I gotta listen to it again and take deeper notes. But I think that's enough time talking about one short story. But please go watch it. It is a 40-minute audiobook. It is in the description, changing how I look at a lot of stories. But that's all the time I have for today. Thank you guys very much for joining me for episode 21 of Eat the Blank Page. No, you're not going crazy. Last week there was no episode. I apologize. But there is one this time. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day and that I can make your day a little bit better, a little bit more thoughtful. God, that was an egotistical statement that I am going to ignore. Have a good one. Goodbye.